terms of the auction. Okay, so a chuirde gael, bhí usually, while I'm for láthar in ish, Chair nach Brachragus Public na Héireann, agus Ard Ceannasaí Óglaí na Héireann. I'd like to introduce you now, a chuirde gael, the Chairman of the Irish Republican Brotherhood and Commander-in-Chief of Óglaí na Héireann, John D. Flanaghan.
Last year was going to be difficult following Paddy Cullinan, but I really don't know how we're going to follow all of that. I would also like to welcome you all here today to what is our inaugural Albion Ball. It is my honour to be Chairman of the IRB and Commander-in-Chief of Óglaí na Héireann. There is no doubt that the warrior women have shown. They're coming through in full force now. We can all see it and feel it. I myself have had a warrior woman by my side for the last 2 years, and I'd like to round of applause. I do, of course, also 3 other very, very special girls in my life, Veronica, Olivia and Hayley. And I know that they were paying attention when Tony said he listens to every word I say. And when I say I know you're not going to be bidding on the auction items later on, I know you won't. So look, indeed, this is a very special gathering, there's no doubt about it. I don't think I've ever felt such united energy in the room in my life. We are here for the Albion Ball, as I said, and the Albion is indeed a very special place.
What are the forces that close down Albion, heart of the world? What lies beyond the scene that impacts our daily lives? Who are the interdimensional influences of human society? What is the significance of Albion, the ancient name for the British Isles? What are ley lines and stone circles really? How can they be awakened by human contact? Why have these beautiful islands you can hardly see on the globe had such an impact on world events?
So I'm going to tell a little story, and seeing as the theme is quite obviously warrior women, today's story is going to be about 3 sisters. 3 sisters of sovereignty. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of flags, the importance of words and how they spell, and the importance of having the correct definition for some of those words. Here behind me is the ancient flag of Éire. This is Éire, one of the goddesses of sovereignty, and the ancient azure blue. She's going to feature in this story a lot. We heard from Lady Crown, and we've heard from others here today about the chant. But I think it's time for us to develop a new chant. A 3-step rule to win this final battle. And before we do anything, before we take any step forward, whether it be as an individual or whether it be as part of a group or an organisation. Before we step forward, we must know how they do what they do to you. We're going nowhere unless we know that. We know what they do. We'll never know why they do it, but we must know how they do what they do to you. And how do they do it? Well, we must go back to 1302 for the first express trust in the world. Papal bull sanctum. Assumes or presumes that I must be in allegiance with the Vatican, with the popes, to save my soul. Romanus Pontifex assumes or presumes my estate is deceased. Attorney Regis assumes or presumes to condemn me to perpetual servitude. And we go on and we go on. They assume and presume that we are something we are not. And they assume and presume they can do what they wish to us. These papal bulls gave authority for those of the cabal to go around the world, slaughter indigenous people, draw imaginary lines across land, plant flags and claim territories. Henry VIII was a very colourful character in more ways than one. He saw the power of those papal bulls, those presumptions on paper everlasting. And he decided he would get in the act. And he found an earlier papal bull, the papal bull out of Benefit from 1155. And he said there exists an earlier papal bull than your guys' papal bulls, and that gives Ireland, it gives Hibernia to the King of England. Which brought about the Crown of Ireland Act in 1542. 1542 was a very interesting year. There's been some very, very significant years in the world where monster change has come about. 1542, there was the Crown of Ireland Act, and we can see one of the three sisters, Eru, jailed. 1542 is also interesting because one of those three popes, the organisation, the Grey Pope, the King of the Jesuits, well, they discovered that the world was round in 1542. And so it brings us to the crown shield. And we can see our goddess of sovereignty captured in the third quarter of the crown shield. That emblem is seen everywhere throughout the world. It's the emblem that makes the claim on property all over the world. If we think Vatican City, City of London, and Washington, D.C., those three houses are how they claim everything in the world. And they claim it under the assumptions and presumptions of acts, statutes, legislation, rules, and regulation. Assumptions and presumptions on paper that they can do what they want to us. And it gives them their law. This is how they control the land, the air, and the water. Think those three houses. The air jurisdiction, the land jurisdiction, and the sea jurisdiction. Between them, they have a claim on everything. That's their law. And in the courts of the world, and it's pretty much the same all over the world, that veil, that sorcery that goes on behind the scenes, the judge will be a banker, a landlord, or a priest, depending on what you present yourself as. They will move jurisdiction. So they kept going after us with acts. The Acts of Union of 1707 for Great Britain. Which brings us to the second sister, Onga, another sister of sovereignty, on the green background, the flag of the 1798 rebellion. Because, as the account said, Ireland never stopped fighting. Ireland never gave up its sovereignty. But they came again, didn't they, with another act, the Act of Union of 1801. The significance of the flags. So they combined the flags of the nations and made a new flag and said, this is the flag of the Act of Union 1801, and this marks the position and the claim over all these lands. And that's pretty much how they captured the heart and soul of the world. If we say in 1302 they captured the soul, by 1542, and with the onslaught of corporations, they captured the heartlands, the Albion. So we know how they do what they do to you. So how do we go and do something about it? We know that they do it with assumptions and presumptions. So we must reject the assumptions and reset the presumptions. It's interesting to note the difference between a proclamation and a declaration. A proclamation is a statement which is proclaimed, a formal public announcement of something that is to happen, or going to happen, or planned to happen. But a declaration is a written or oral indication of a fact, opinion, or belief. A fact. We have a very powerful document in this country. It's the document of the 1916 Rising. It's fondly referred to as a proclamation. But I would suggest to all of you here that it's more of a declaration than a proclamation, because it declares the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be sovereign and indefeasible. That's a fact. That's what was declared at 12:04 on the 24th of April 1916, a fact. A fact that was verbalised but also committed to paper. A fact that has never been disputed, never been refuted. And it proclaimed the Irish Republic. At breakfast this morning, Stephen from Norway reminded me of two things that the cabal is terrified of: natural law and the Republic. But do we know what a republic is, or what a constitutional republic is? We're told that we live in a democracy. But what's the difference between a democracy and a limited democracy of a constitutional republic?
Democracy is a form of government based upon the principle of majority rule. Period. End of discussion. Now that's not very complicated. Majority rule. It's easy to understand, easy to sell to the masses, and I might add, dead. For example, what would you call a lynch mob? That's majority rule. There's only one dissenting vote, and he's at the end of the door. Now that's pure democracy in action. Now, but wait a minute, you said. The majority should rule, yes, but not to the extent of destroying the rights of the minority. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are no longer describing a democracy. We are speaking of a republic. A republic is a limited democracy. It's a form of government based upon the principle of limited majority rule. Limited so that the minority, even a minority of one, can be protected against the whims and passions of the majority. And how do you protect the minority from the majority? You write down a set of rules on a piece of paper. You say, this we can do, that we cannot. At the top of the paper, you write the word Constitution. And then everyone agrees to follow the rules no matter what the temptation. And when you're finished, you've created a constitutional republic.
Interesting that, isn't it? The subtle differences between a democracy where we must all follow the majority, or a limited democracy of a republic where the wishes of the individual can be safeguarded. I mentioned the time that the proclamation was promulgated, 12:04, 24th of April 1916, where a fact was declared, where a provisional government was constituted. Now the time is very important. Why is the time very important? Because the cabal have claimed the time. 12:04 on the 24th of April 1916 was unique to Ireland. Because up until the late 1800s, every single town and village in Ireland had its own time zone. It went by the sundial in the town or village square. They aligned all those timelines to produce a timetable for the railroad system that was being developed. So it was unique to Ireland and the people of Ireland and the land of Ireland what was declared. We know that secret societies around the world set their clock 5 minutes or 10 minutes before or after normal time, because they know that what happens in what we refer to as normal time is scripted, and we're all actors in that script. They own that script in the timeline. Those of you, and I'm not talking about myself, that have come into difficulties with the Gardaí, will know that they always know the time when the incident or the offence occurred. Why? Because that's so important. They must pin it to the time, because they own the time. But what I'm saying to all of you in this room here is that there's a unique time to this land, which is Irish Rising time. Whenever we in the IRB are doing, constructing, creating, sanctioning important documents at important meetings, we'll always note the time they are concluded at Irish Rising time, which is approximately 25 minutes before Greenwich Mean Time. Now it is, of course, with the development of Albion and the Albion councils, it's now International Rising Time. So we do the same with what we do with Albion in England, Hungary and Albion. And that gave us the Irish Republic of 1919. It hasn't gone away, it's just not utilised. So when you have governance that is the choice of the people, which is a republic, it's a choice of government, remember. It's not an imposition, it's a choice of government. But you must also have a mechanism to protect the people. So we had also that here in 1919. We had the Sovereign Body Courts that operated under customary common law, natural law, and the Bretton laws. Those laws haven't gone away either. What happened is that with the Ministries and Secretaries Act, they put a legislative veil over all that was established, all the sovereign position of 1919. So this image here is to show you what's required or what's needed by people to anchor a sovereign nation state. And when you have a sovereign nation state anchored, you need a permanent population, a critical mass, you need a leader, and you need a proclamation or a constitution. Those are the three basic ingredients for that. But you must have the sovereign nation state anchored before you start dabbling in commerce. If you don't, commerce will take over. 1919 was a very, very special year for this country. 1919, 21st of January 1919, is our Independence Day. Yet most of the population of this country don't know what happened on the 21st of January 1919. Of course, the alien government will always be threatened. So the alien government is coming into this land with the so-called Anglo-Irish Treaty. Now, all of us get hope every few years when new people come along with new energy that want to run for a position in government, be it local government or national government. The best of people come forward. And the reason that it will never work, and this is the reason the world over, the reason that you can never change that system is because once that individual, that good man or woman gets elected or selected, they become a corporation. So every minister in every government is a corporation. And a corporation will only perform for its shareholders. And the people of the sovereign nations are not the shareholders, obviously. That's what the Ministers and Secretaries Act did in this country. There are similar acts in all the other countries. Lurking in the background here we have what we call Dev and the Jez. The Jesuits also have a hand in the constitutions and the paperwork of all the countries. And another trick they impose on nations that get their independence, that break free. It's strange how the constitutions are all bifurcated. There's always that one clause in it that is contingent on something happening and preserves the laws preceding it. It's easy to miss it, but it's in all the constitutions of all the countries that got their independence. Another word the cabal love dabbling with is citizen. Now, the ancient definition of citizen is a very safe, simple definition. The dweller in any town or place, the state of exemption from the control of another. The definition of a citizen in a constitutional republic is also safe. But of course, the way we are all seen by the cabal is a citizen, which is a person who is given rights by qualification. We have no rights, no sovereign rights, if we're a person citizen, under the definition of Black's Law Dictionary. They tell you your rights. Your rights are qualified in a box. You're a person defined under an act. We said there are some very important years where some very important changes. And when they go to change, they change big. And we are all living under the curse of the changes of 1933, the introduction of the birth cert. But it wasn't just that. It was a complete overhaul of the financial and judicial system. They removed value from money and they introduced fiat currency. And they introduced the system of usufruct, whereby anyone that uses fiat currency, the simple act of using their currency, is seen by them to be a beneficiary of the system. Their definition of beneficial owner is user rights, the right to benefit from and use. They've diluted a very lawful definition of beneficial interest in private property and equitable interest in private property. Started off in the United States. The United States, of course, is where the Federal Reserve was founded. But with the ever-expanding rollout of the central bank system, and everywhere there has been a financial crash, and the funding and the great help comes from the central bank system and the IMF and all those great saviours, then a fundamental change comes in the financial institutions and the judicial system in those countries. Bit by bit. All of that together is the cabal. We'll never understand them. We'll never know why they do what they do. They don't like each other no more than we don't like them. But they're all together claiming the heart and soul of the world, the private property of the world, the life force of the world that is rightfully belonging to each and every living man and woman. Before 1302, they just ran around the world and plundered and planted flags. But after 1302 was when the real paper on stock came. The presumptions and assumptions on paper, that runs right through to very today. They made the plan first. They put the plan in the public domain. It was never disputed. And off they went to save our souls. And how did they roll out this plan? How did they roll out the plan from the introduction of the birth cert in 1933? Well, through the register. And we all know that we're told we must register everything, aren't we? Every single thing we have, we're told we must register. And then we must get a license from those we registered it with to use it. And register is Regis, Regis is the Crown. And the fact of the matter is that whenever you register anything, you give ownership of what you register to who you register with. That's the fact of the matter. And they want us to register everything. From our children, to our cars, to our houses, to every single thing we have. We must be very careful what we register, or at least have some underlying claim, higher claim on what we register. So back to the Crown Shield, and our first goddess of sovereignty, Eru, that was jailed back in 1542. That's the Crown Shield from 1542 to 1953. What happened in 1953? 1953 was the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. I don't know how many of you in this room might have watched a coronation ever, and how they become the sovereign head. But how they do it is that they get the sovereign government of the sovereign people for England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales to see them, the incoming king or queen, as the sovereign head, in exchange for that king or queen respecting and promising to uphold the Constitution. Now in 1953, Queen Elizabeth's coronation was delayed for 16 months. They had a couple of problems. One, they couldn't find the Stone of Destiny. They still can't find it. Two, they had a problem when it came to the Irish Republic, who, as John Coffey mentioned earlier, the government of the Irish Republic is by fact and by right the Supreme Council of the IRB. And the President of the Irish Republic is by fact and by right the President of the IRB, is by fact and by right the President of the Irish Republic. So where did they go? They didn't go to Dublin to get the consent of the corporate government. They went to Willowbank, as John told us about, and invited Billy Maguire's father, Martin, over to that coronation. Billy Maguire's father was heavily invested in the peace and reconciliation process at that time. He may have thought that being invited over to that coronation was, well, I suppose, a fig leaf of some sort. But when he came back, it was one of the first things that Billy Maguire told me. As John mentioned about the chant, Billy repeats himself. He's been told to repeat things, and he said, John, I was sat at every single meeting of the Supreme Council from 7 years of age. And I was 10 years of age when my father came back from Westminster. And there was a big meeting in Willowbank, a big meeting. The IRB Supreme Council sat, and the decision was, simple words, the decision was, which meant that they had the authority to decide. She doesn't have sovereignty, all she has is right. She doesn't have sovereignty, all she has is right. And for the first time in 411 years, that crown shield changed. And the seventh string, Maid of Erin, Goddess of Sovereignty, Eru harp, was replaced with the sixth string IRB harp. They'll tell you it's because Queen Elizabeth didn't like the old harp, it wasn't feminine enough. Now, I don't know, can you get anything more feminine in a harp than the Maid of Erin, as opposed to what it was replaced with? Billy turning the sovereign seal, seen before, maintaining the claim, the land of Ireland for the people of Ireland. Because remember, you have to make the claim. He who fails to assert his rights has none. That's a maxim, that's a legal maxim, it's a fact. If you don't make the claim, you won't have it. So what are steps we can take? We've seen how they've made presumptions and assumptions that they own every square inch of us and every square inch of the world. Step one, we must start to secure the sovereign self. We must learn to write right. We must learn the power of a crest. We must learn to utilise the postal mechanics of the UPU. Learn the difference between a signature and an autograph. Learn the difference and the power of a thumbprint of a living man. Learn the difference between notices and letters. Everything in their world is about being a novice. A novice is a far more powerful instrument than a letter. The tentacles of trespass and the trust, or private trust, which were created at birth. There are many different ways you can go about it. There's none better than the other. It depends what you prefer to do. This here is an example of a declaration of fact and claim of dominion. And it's where essentially you're renouncing the papal bulls that have a claim on your life force. You're claiming your dominion. And then you can, if you wish, go about carefully capturing your corporation. That corporation that they love to communicate with so much. When the authorities write to us in our block capital letters, with a very important Mr. or Mrs. before it. The step you can take with that is a live claim in a UPU. Secure your sovereign self, remove the tentacles of trespass from the trust, and carefully capture your corporation. If you are on this road of sovereignty, you must address those three aspects, those three pillars. Because if you concentrate on one and one only, they get you with another. If you don't build up your sovereignty, the three pillars of sovereignty, they'll get you. So that's the individual. What about land? What about property? Well, all property, especially since 1933, is in maritime law. It's seen by the system as usufruct. We are seen as beneficiaries of the system. So the old position of common law, of customary common law, of equitable interest, beneficial interest, and of course, lodial or allodial title, is invisible in their world. So we have a responsibility, being members of the IRB, who are essentially, the organisation is, it's not John Flanaghan, it's not John Coughlin, it's not our shoes. The organisation is what's authentic. The authority in the organisation rests with the seals and the seals. And those that occupy the seats must be altruistic. But the organisation is maintained and sustained a claim for the people. So when we looked at this, we decided we'd write to the land registry to get the answers we knew they were going to give us. And we said, we've looked at your system, and it seems to be deficient in the protection of private property rights, especially when it comes to beneficial and equitable interest. Now, as it turns out, we got much more help from the Land Registry UK than we did from Land Registry Ireland. So, one section is very interesting, which again is what we knew, but to get it back from them in writing to confirm the position. And this is in relation to Wales and England, where they confirm that a private trust, the land in private trust, separates the legal estate from the underlying ownership, the beneficial or equitable interest. Property in trust separates the legal estate from the real ownership. So how do we put that together? Step one is know how they do what they do to you. Step two is reject the assumptions, reset the presumptions. And step three is maintain the claim in the public domain. That's public domain, EIRE.org. We were listening to loads of people around the world for the last few years saying they were going to develop an alternative to the land registry. Well, as it turns out, they didn't, so we had to do it. So that's the enrollment of International Real Estate Organisation, which is for the Albion region. We also have one specifically for ERA, and we do, of course, have EIRE.com, which is for the entire world. Here's the lovely Naheed with her individual tab on EIRE.org. You will see that that confirms that Naheed's current operating status is private. She's operating in the private, not the public. If the authorities stop Naheed, she can give her travel card. The QR code will bring it into her tab where her documents protecting her sovereignty, correcting the land, air, water claims that they have are there, current and alive. There's the property, acknowledging the legal position, but positioning the lawful position of the beneficial, equitable and loyal claim on the property. Same for the lovely Albion in Wales. Current operating status private property in a family trust which has confirmed that the legal estate is separated from the underlying ownership. There's an ancient unwritten law which is 100 your own council, 300 your own courts, 600 your own country. This image here is to show us what I spoke about earlier when you have a good man or woman running for local or national government. You have the sovereign living men and women, and you have that good sovereign living man or woman pitching his sales pitch to the public, because he's going to get into government and make a change, make a difference. But he never gets there, because as we spoke about earlier, once you get into that position, you're a corporation. And the corporation sees us as persons with rights qualified under acts, and we have no say. That's why it never work. The Albion is a very unique place in the world. We see the Albion as the heart shack of the world. We say that the crown shield corrupted the heart shack of the world. And the Albion shield that we're bringing forward corrects that. It's the heart shack that corrected. We have 4 national instruments. If you look at them, they represent the 2 ventricles and the 2 atriums of the heart. We have 4 national animals and we have 4 national emblems. Equal representation of the 4 nations. Tony read the Declaration of Birmingham, which was read for the first time by Naive when we established the Albion Council, 15th of June 2023. Claim in the public domain. Here's Albion. The England Community Council, first established on the 27th of September 2024. There's England's position on the Albion Shield. Cymru Community Council in Co-op, established on the 28th of September 2024. Cymru's position in the Albion Shield. Alba, 7th of December 2024. Alba Council in Co-op on the Albion Shield. ERA Community Council. And then we start working. We make the macro claim, and then we start making the micro claims. We condense the claims. The more you condense and concentrate the claim, the stronger the claim is. The complete opposite of what the cabal want. They want to rule from above over everything. When of course, the people and the people of the community must have the ultimate say in their communities. We reseated the National Economic Council. We established Health Services ERA Co-op and Education ERA. All these organisations must be properly constituted, properly established, with their own manifesto and their own code of conduct. As I said, they must be AAA organisations for them to work. They can never take corporate donations, they can never take injections from the system. AAA, organisation must be authentic. The authority of the organisation is in the seats and the seals, and the people that occupy the seats must be altruistic. And what's done cannot be undone. There's the flag of Health Services ERA. I mentioned last year in my talk in the Mansion House how we had salvaged 19 flags for the sovereign nation state of Ireland in the UPU. Flags map position. Flags are very important. We saw and we heard Lady Crown talk about the 10-foot by 10-foot flag that was hoisted the day outside this hotel. That's the constitution of Egypt here. And then we get into the real book. Then we get into where it's really important, the communities. I always say that the threat comes at local governments, not at national governments. That's a farce, it's a charade. Where they hurt us and where the damage is done is what they impose at local level. And how do they do it? Well, we saw how they do it with the elected representatives. But once those elected representatives get into the council chambers, they lose their voice. And that means the people of the community lose their voice. So everything that's proposed to be imposed on communities after these election or selection process, the community have no say really. This is the purpose of community councils. The community council is about knowing how to say no. So that when a community council is properly established, it's able to communicate to the local corporate government and the local elected representative and say, congratulations on your position and your job, and well done. But please note, please be on notice, that anything from here on in, since the establishment of these community councils, anything proposed for this community must be on notice to the council, so that the council can take the votes of the sovereign people of that mapped territorial community area. And a flag. Every community will have its own flag. And that's the mapped territorial area. This is what we've been missing. The pieces of the jigsaw is the map. Because to set jurisdiction, you must map it. That's what they do. If we don't map it and claim a higher jurisdiction, well, then it's just in the ether. I think most of us know that the spiritual battle is won. But we must imprint the third dimension. And to do that, it's on paper. We must put that claim of a higher jurisdiction on paper. Here's Uachtaráir, the 2nd of November 2024, with their map and their flag. Another piece of the jigsaw. Ballyshannon, Donegal Town, 30th of November. Flag and map. Flanaghan. Tony was visiting us after we came back after the establishment of the Albion Community Council in Galway. On the 14th of December 2024, we travelled up to Flanaghan. Cole Community Hall. And I'm telling this little story just to let you all know how possible this is. There was maybe 10 people in that room who didn't really know why they were there, didn't really understand what was going on, but they just knew that what their community was being threatened with they didn't like, and they were hoping that something could be done about it. And we managed to successfully establish the Flanaghan Community Council on the 14th of December. A town with a population of maybe 1,000 people. And now 3 months later, they have 150 members. 15% of the population. All those 150 members have to do now is get one more member each. And then they have critical mass of 300. And then they have, within natural law and the ancient and written law, the authority to establish their own courts. I've had these discussions in the last couple of months with High Court judges. I've had these exchanges. The job I have to do in the courts is a double-edged sword, because it's relatively easy to get cases against you dismissed if you challenge jurisdiction. But I have to walk the walk, and I must stay on the path. So a recent exchange Justice Nolan, he asked me, will you accept an order from this court? And I said, I don't know what kind of order you have in mind, but I'm participating in a process to get to the full truth. Because he wanted the case out, because we're trouble. And then he said, are you trying to say black is white and white is black? I said, I'm not. Black is black and white is white. But he said, are you challenging these courts? I said, I'm not. I said, I'm merely here to establish the fact of the jurisdiction of these courts. Because it appears to me that they're deficient in protecting private property rights for the sovereign people of this land. So they know that community courts and county courts are coming. And these courts are not for squabbles, not for bickering between the people. They're for the communities to be able to lawfully say no, to know how to say no. Westport, another piece of the jigsaw. Ballybofey, Glenties, Inishowen South, Inishowen North, on the 8th of February. Donegal is on fire. All pieces of the jigsaw. All pieces of the jigsaw of the land of Éire. Only two more pieces of the jigsaw for Donegal. I'll make a brave boast and say that Crossmalina will be the first community court in the land of Éire, and Donegal will be the first county court. Sligo County. Map and flag. And what does it mean? Well, this is what it means. The assumptions and presumptions no longer affect. You get your pure paperwork position and the putrid paperwork falls. Their law where they claim the land, the air and the water falls. It's a paper battle. They make assumptions and presumptions on paper. We must reject and reset those assumptions and presumptions. What does it mean for all these legislation, acts, statutes, rules, regulations? Well, to use their language, non-a factum, not my document. To recap then, because I know you're all tired of listening to me drone on and everybody wants to go to the bar, especially Kevin. So the cabal controls favour all the elements of it. It's what they want. They want to see us as citizens defined in the Black's Law Dictionary. Or to put it in a condensed presentation, Mr. or Mrs. surname person as restricted private property. You could actually summarise the whole of this presentation into that. And what a republic recognises, the republic recognises sovereignty. And all the good that goes with that. Or, to say that simply, sovereign living men and women as respected private property. This is how the community councils will work in the co-ops. This is how we give the power to the elected representatives, the good ones. We give them a voice. The community elects its council. The council must gain knowledge. The council must have sufficient knowledge to offer that knowledge to the people and get the people's say on matters affecting their community, and then offload that knowledge to the elected representative in the corporate world, so that whatever they are proposing to impose, if the community don't want it, the community won't suffer it. As Barra said, ni nat go cor le céile. And the third sister, you were waiting for her, Fola, to go hand in hand with the Fuela. For those of you that might know that image over those community councils is a Flanaghan. In old Irish folklore, they were the protectors of community and children. So we have our three sisters of sovereignty here, the three ancient sisters of this land, Eru, Banba and Fola. And it's the Fola with the sword of sovereignty together with the Flanaghan is how we win this. Thank you all for listening.
Good morning, John. Into her fat. I've never seen a room of such attention in all my life, so well done. We're coming to this part of the evening where entertainment is going to start, but I just got a notion at the back of the room there. I'm going to start the entertainment. And I want to sing a song. Sorry, this wasn't planned, John. I hope that's okay. Every Irish man and Irish woman, every boy, every girl in Ireland will know this song. So I'm going to ask everyone to stand up for a second, please. Stand up. Chastity never go. This is partly motivated by the fact that Lady Crown has such a wonderful voice. We're not going to let her come here and steal our thunder now. I know. We've had enough of foreigners coming here and taking things from us. We're not going to have any more. I'll warn in advance, I haven't a voice like Lady Crown, but we're going to sing a good old Irish song now, okay? So we're just going to start by stamping our foot. Or tap the table, I don't care. Tell
Gracias.